Chapter 17. Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks, you too. G. William was saying into the phone. He leaned back in his chair, gazing over the desk at Jazz, who still sat opposite him, the Helen Myerson file on his lap. Myerson. She had served him coffee 1,000 times, and he'd never known her last name. He tried to remember when he'd last seen her. A couple of days ago? Weathers had been there. The first time Jazz had seen him in a long time. So he and Howie had gotten their coffee to go. Had Jazz left a tip? He couldn't remember, and it suddenly seemed incredibly important. G. William finished on the phone. It had taken only a few minutes to confirm what they already knew. Billy's still locked up nice and tight, G. William said. Warden says he's been exactly where he's supposed to be, all night and all day and all night again. Just like the last 4 years. He's not going anywhere, and he hasn't gone anywhere. So unless your dad has figured out how to teleport or split himself in two... Jazz shook his head, staring down at the Myerson file. It all made sense. It all fit. He had realized last night, looking at the O'Donnelly and Goodling murders, then looking at Billy's victims, what the pattern was, and it fit Billy Dent. Billy's first victim, he explained moments earlier to G. William, was a woman named Cassie Overton. Her life, her age, her appearance, her death, all identical to O'Donnelly. His second victim was Farrah Gordon, same age, job, hair color as Fiona Goodling, strangled to death and left naked in a field just like Goodling. And now a third victim, same initials as Helen, Harper McLeod, waitress, 25, brown hair, boom. Billy started having fun at that point. Drain cleaner injections, causes muscle spasms, intense pain, arrhythmia, eventually a heart attack. That's when he started the posing too, got the nickname The Artist. It's not your daddy, G. William said, now, his tone kind. It was meant to be reassuring, Jazz supposed, but he couldn't let himself take it that way. He wasn't sure which was worse, the idea that Billy had somehow escaped and decided to relive his greatest hits, or that... A copycat? Maybe, G. William said, almost to himself, as though Jazz weren't even in the room. Someone out there doing his best Billy Dent impression. And there was the or that had him worried him. A copycat. Someone who knew Billy's crimes well. But the most likely copycat, everyone would assume, would be none other than Billy Dent Jr., also known as Jasper Francis Dent. Maybe Howie's was wrong. Maybe that was a good serial killer name after all. Jazz wet his lips. It took him almost a minute to find his breath, to say the words he didn't want to say, but he had to know. You don't think I did this, do you, G. William? I don't want to think that. The sheriff sounded like he was trying to convince someone. Himself? Or Jazz? That didn't really answer my question. G. William sat up straight and strummed a Johnny Little rhythm on the desk. Totally out of nowhere, completely unsuited to the moment. Plenty of people out there know all sorts of things about your dad's crimes, Jazz. You're pretty far down on my suspect list. Ah. But I'm still on it. G. William snorted. If my mama was alive, she'd be on my list until I could clear her. You know how this goes, Jazz. Yes, Jazz knew how it went, but it didn't make him feel any better. He couldn't allow the niceties and vagaries of police procedure to lull him into complacency. G. William's opinion was fine, but pretty soon this would be bigger than the sheriff of Lobo's Nod. There would be a task force, and reporters, and all the usual nonsense, and sooner or later, probably sooner, probably way too soon for comfort, really, someone would say, you know what? Why are we spending all this time looking for some mystery man when the most likely candidate is over at the high school dressed like a Puritan and screaming to the rafters about blood on his head? Because didn't that make the most sense? That Jazz had finally cracked and decided to follow in dear old Dad's footsteps? Jazz struggled to keep his expression neutral, but something must have slipped through, because G. William, again in a not unkind tone, said, Jazz, don't go worrying. We're going to catch this guy. It's a done deal. He's caught, you hear me? There'll be more murders, Jazz said. Once he hit number 3, Billy went on a spree and did 3 more in pretty rapid succession. You're going to have... Listen to me, G. William interrupted. Listen. It might not be someone following his career. Could be someone inspired, sure, but that doesn't mean they're following him to the letter. Those first 2 murders were pretty generic. A plastic bag, strangling. It's exactly how Billy did it. He couldn't believe G. William wasn't taking this more seriously. And, the sheriff said calmly, it's exactly how 1,000 other people did it too. There's nothing unique about a plastic bag or throttling someone with your bare hands. But the initials, the victims, and the latest one, it's practically the same woman. G. William leaned back in his chair. I know you're trying to help, but there's things worse than linkage blindness in cases like this. Yeah, like what? Jazz fought to keep a sneer out of his voice, fought and failed. You have to think around corners and behind walls to catch these guys, Jazz. Nothing is ever what it appears to be. Figured you'd know that more than anyone else. Worst thing than linkage blindness is getting cocky. Thinking you get it. Thinking you've got it figured out before you really do. You ever think this could all be a setup? That this guy could be playing us? Jazz shrugged. Sure, it was possible. But an obnoxious, unignorable tickle in the back of his mind and a matching twist in his guts told him that it wasn't likely. If I wanted to throw the cops off my scent, G. William went on, you know what I would do? I would make it look like I was following a preset list. I would follow it to the letter, and then I would totally juke to the right when they were looking for me to go left. I don't know. You can't underestimate these guys. This guy, he's like your daddy, all right. Highly organized. Really smart, this one. You know how we found Helen? I'll tell you how. An anonymous tip. 911 call from a payphone outside town. Same as Goodling. Now, who do you think gave us that tip? The killer, of course. With a pleased smile, G. William said, right. Had to be. He's setting us up, making it look like he's following Billy's path. And to make it look that way, he has to make sure we find every clue. So he's helping us along. But you know how these guys are, Jazz? They don't give with one hand unless they got a gun loaded and cocked and pointed at your head with the other. He's trying to trick us. And I'm not going to let that happen. But, look, we're going to look into it. All the aspects, all the angles, including this Billy angle. Probably get the feds into it, too, as soon as we can fill out that damn VICAP questionnaire and get it confirmed. Goodling and O'Donnelly were killed by the same guy. So don't you worry, we're going to get him. He nodded thoughtfully. We're going to get him, Jazz. This isn't going to be a repeat of your dad's days. This guy's not even getting close to double digits, all right? Jazz forced himself to nod. G. William heaved his bulk out of the chair, using the desk for support and leverage. Let's go. I'll drive you back to school. They rode in silence, G. William speaking only once to apologize for Erickson yanking Jazz out of play practice so roughly. It's all right, Jazz told him. It's been a bad few days for him. He was first on the scene to find Myerson's body, and he was first on the scene for Goodling, too. G. William chuckled without mirth. Poor guy. Transfers down from Lindenburg in his first couple of days are one body stacked up on top of another. So he's just real upset. You know how it is. It's really all right. Play practice was still in session as they pulled up. Jazz recognized some of his castmates' cars in the parking lot, as well as Ginny's beat-up old Kia. You're done, Jazz, G. William told him as he got out of the car. You're out of the investigative business, got it? You got any other ideas, you run them past me, okay? Sure. He waved goodbye to G. William and headed inside where practice was just ending. With the exception of Connie and Ginny, Everyone looked surprised to see him, as though they had expected him to be behind bars by now. And maybe that wasn't such a crazy expectation. He could hardly blame them. "I can't believe he pulled you out of here like that," Ginny fumed after rehearsal ended. The rest of the cast had drifted off to their cars, leaving Jazz on stage with Ginny and Connie. "I was going to call your grandmother, but Connie said that might not be such a great idea." "Probably not." He squeezed Connie's hand, which hadn't left his since he'd walked through the door. "Thanks. But I was ready to call a lawyer. My brother knows someone." "It was a misunderstanding," he assured her, pouring on the charm. He allowed his face to relax into a lazy grin. "And nothing's wrong in the whole world, darlin'," sort of smile that immediately put people at ease. He'd learned it from watching Billy, and it was way too effective. Also, it was far too easy to slip into. Maybe it was just being in the auditorium surrounded by the pieces of the crucible? But Jazz couldn't help being reminded of another of Hale's bits of dialogue. "Theology, sir, is a fortress. No crack in a fortress may be accounted small." He felt the same way about his own sanity. Even the smallest crack, the smallest lapse, could lead to... Ginny patted his arm. "Let me know if I can help you. If you want me to write a letter or something." Jazz suppressed a snort of laughter. Write a letter. God bless Ginny Davis and her goofy curls and her millennial hippieism. Connie stayed quiet until they got into Jazz's car. "Now what?" she asked, though the expression on her face and the tension he felt in her hand told him that she already knew. "Ignoring G. William has gotten me this far," Jazz said. "Let's see where it takes me next."